Hello and welcome to the latest Blood Red podcast. I am your host, Stephen Killen, and today I'm joined by Theo Squires, and we will be previewing this weekend's game against Arsenal, but we've also got all the biggest bites to sink our teeth into, including Trent Alexander-Arnold and what the future holds for him and for the remainder of the season and Liverpool's team. Theo, how are you?
I'm all right. Do you hear that sound? It's not a book falling over. No. It's the audience views going down with just us two.
No.
We need the big boys back, don't we? You can tell the title's won, isn't it? That's why we can bring you back on. It's been a while since you've done one of these.
I know, I've been out of action for a while. Just get stuck in that work from home space and just thought, come for the hour, come for the man, and it's Peter Crouch and Dirk Hoyt all over again, isn't it, me and you? Little and large. But how are you?
You nearly knocked him again there.
I know, I need to be careful. For those of you watching, we slightly delayed due to some minor accessory issues behind me, but if they fall, you'll enjoy that on the outtakes at the end of the season. But yeah, we'll go into the meat and drink of it all now. You were there in Kirby today. What was the atmosphere like? Because it's obviously been a season, or at least a week, where it's been quite seismic off the pitch.
Yeah, I think it felt business as usual, really, from Arne Slot. Like, we've heard him be asked about Trent's future so often this season, and he's just sidestepped it time and time again, going, this is not the place to talk publicly about the contract situations. It's fair enough. He's within his rights to do that. We know now that he was made aware that Trent was not going to be staying during the mid-March international break. They had face-to-face talks. And he's kept that under his hat. They were waiting until the Premier League was won. And now this week, we finally got that answer. We were waiting all week to see what Arne Slot would say. And it's what you would expect, really. He says he's disappointed to lose a star player. But he's a lot more hopeful than the fan base are in social media at the moment. Obviously, looking towards the future, there's that excitement there of getting his fingerprints more onto this team with what happens in the transfer window. I'm sure we'll touch on it in a moment, but you said Conor Bradley's going to start against Arsenal, so that's another glimpse into what's coming next. But then he was joking as well, like he was talking about transfer trends in terms of free transfers. Obviously, Real Madrid do sign a lot of players at the end of their contracts, and he deliberately said Trent. So he's making light of the situation. He had to check that everyone actually got the joke, because no one really laughed at first until we realised he was deliberately trying to make a joke. But yeah, he was very relaxed, as you'd expect him to be, having just won the Premier League. And doesn't seem too phased. He's probably had a feeling for a while that Trent wasn't going to be signing this new contract. And while you never give up, hopefully, he's had an extra, 6 weeks to process it compared to a very frustrated fan base. But yeah, he's already full steam ahead looking towards next season. That first glimpse of Bradley getting a starting shirt, and then it'll be interesting to see what he does next year in terms of who is that right back.
And he even made a slight nod to, he knows, or we all know where he's going, obviously, as a hint towards Real Madrid. And just it's an easy segue into, if he does go to Madrid, he's going to need a VPN, isn't he, if he wants to get onto all the stuff that's going on in Liverpool and in England or elsewhere. And if you are listening and you'd like to be using a VPN abroad to get the best discount off your NordVPN plan, make sure you go to nordvpn.com/bloodred. Our link gives you an extra 4 months on a 2-year plan, and there's no risk with Nord's 30-day money back guarantee. The link is in the podcast episode description box below. I think that was the perfect segue. And if Trent's watching, he might even jump on. And if he needs an assister like me, or at least to provide, that was a perfect deal for you to smash home to. What do you think?
Am I answering about NordVPN here, or just your segues here? I'm more focusing on that chair. It's so close to the bookcase. Take this moment to move to your side slightly. Even then, it wobbles.
Oh, God. Oh, dear. But no, you mentioned it a bit earlier there, Theo, about Conor Bradley, and you wouldn't normally get that from Slot, where he shows his hand in the pre-match press conference of who's starting, but it feels quite big, the fact he went and said Conor Bradley's going to start at the weekend. He clearly is nailing his colours to the mast now.
Yeah, I remember him doing it early on in the season, like in the League Cup, when you're talking about the goalkeepers. I think he said it when Jaros played against Brighton in the League Cup when Alisson was injured. I think he gave it away with Kelleher for maybe West Ham in the earlier round. So we were assuming that he was going to do that all the way through the League Cup, and then he just didn't. So since October, he hasn't really liked to give anything away. It'll be in the squad. We'll see what happens. So for him to come out and say that, it's like, fair play. That's a line for us. We'll take that happily. But it's definitely a hint towards next season. Like you said, if Conor Bradley hadn't been coming back from injury, probably would have started against Chelsea. And we do have to remember that Trent has only just come back from injury himself, so it's about managing both those players. But when the Premier League title is already won, and you know one of those players is not going to be at your club next season, of course it makes sense to focus on the other one. It's not as though they have to go into these games and they have to win to get the Premier League title. That's done and dusted. You focus on your future, and that is potentially Conor Bradley. We don't know necessarily if they'll want to go and sign a big money price, whatever, for a right back like Jeremy Frimpong. He's 40, 50 million. Maybe they want to go down that route, or maybe Conor Bradley is the answer for them. And you've got to just give him games and see. He's had a few injuries in his time. He had the back injury pre-season in 2023. He's done his hamstring a couple of times this year. But maybe he's one of those players there, if you give him a run of games so he's not in and out, the injury issues dry up a little bit. So you're only going to find out by giving him that experience. And then it's going to be a long summer in terms of getting back for pre-season, seeing if he can start the season as first choice, or if they do dip into the transfer market. But he's obviously very talented. He's been amazing, full of positivity since he got into the starting 11 in the Prem. We're talking, 18 months ago? I think that was probably around the Chelsea game, wasn't it, when he just set the world alight there. And he's had to bide his time, be patient behind Trent. But now he's getting his opportunity, and it's up to him to take it. I'm looking forward to it because he's a very different sort of right back. He's more traditional, but he's so exciting when he gets forward. He's so quick as well. We saw that against Chelsea last week, how he was bursting down that line and getting so many crosses in. Granted, not necessarily leading to goals, but I probably won the corner that led to Liverpool scoring, but he's still making that impact. And he's so young as well, so they've got to give him these opportunities, and this is the start.
And it's probably the perfect opportunity for him now, isn't it, to cement that place? And it almost begs the question of, will Trent feature again? He's obviously going to feature in maybe some substitute appearances, but sort of maybe could be an opportunity for him to be phased out a bit more and give Conor Bradley the perfect opportunity to stake his claim and say, you don't need a first choice fullback. You need someone who could probably give me a rest here and there next season.
Yeah, potentially. It's going to be interesting to see what happens, because when it was put to him that, well, you're going to be a bit short at right back, he said, no, we're not. We've got 4. We've got Quansah can play there, Joe Gomez can play there, Curtis Jones can play there. The only thing you're right about is we don't have a natural second option, but we've got players who can play there. So when you look at what Liverpool do need to do in the summer, it'll be interesting to see how high up the list of priorities it is compared to a striker, a left back. But no one doubts Conor Bradley's abilities, and it makes sense to phase Trent out for that starting lineup, because Liverpool got to find ways to score goals, create without him in the side, and it is that sign of faith in Conor Bradley that this is your chance. It's not a case of 3-game audition. If you don't set the world alight in these 3 games, you're not going to be first choice. We're going to go and spend 50 million on a right back, but it's still making those early steps for next season, and that's something Slot referenced last week as well, when he said that the title's won now, so Richard Hughes, the sporting director, and him could have a few more conversations about what they feel the squad needs going into the summer and transfer plans. It's given him a bit of breathing space, so we'll see what happens. You still expect Trent to come on and feature, though interestingly, I don't think he was spotted in the video of the players arriving for at training this morning, so we'll see if he ends up in any training pictures later, or if he's not at the base, or if Liverpool just quietly putting him to the side. But it makes sense completely to focus on the future. That, as I said, that's Conor Bradley.
And just a reminder for those watching and listening online and on your chosen platforms, it's not just us two who are speaking. There's a host of people in the comments here, and got a few questions fired into Joe. And obviously I'm not Joe today, but if you want to send in your questions, please email Joe at joe.rimmer@reachplc.com. And there's one here, Theo, about obviously looking a bit too far ahead to the end of the season, but Julian Baxendale says, do you feel like there will be like a full Klopp-style guard of honour in terms of before the end of the season, given just how split down the middle it feels like this post-season or end-of-season reception is going to be for him?
It's hard to say, because they're obviously going to have the trophy presentation. It's not a case of just parading a trophy they've already won. This will be on the pitch. Here's the Premier League trophy. And then there'll be the whole squad doing their lap of honour. It will probably have a better idea when we see what reception Trent gets if he comes on in some of these games. Because the fact that we know he's not starting, he's not been thrown out there with his teammates. It's if you come on everything is aimed at you, and then you'll have a better feel of it. Trent said himself when he was announcing that he was leaving, he doesn't want that to be the focus. He wants it to be on what the squad have achieved and be on all the team. Slot reiterated that today. So it's just see what happens there. Obviously, is a difference between fans inside the stadium at Anfield and social media. Like this week, we've all seen the social media's response. We've all seen some of the podcast clips and the pundits on Sky Sports or whatever, and it has been heated, toxic in places, but he is still a boyhood Liverpool fan who has lived the dream for his club, who is going to depart as a two-time Premier League champion, who's won every major honour. Like Darwin Núñez, if you just listen to social media, is the most hated man alive, isn't he? Liverpool fans aren't keen on him. But then you go to the game and it's like, well, this isn't the full story here, because the fans inside the stadium, they adore him. They chant his name at every opportunity when he's chasing down lost balls into the corner, or he's closing down the keeper, or he's just making things happen, making himself a nuisance. Just because it's a vocal section of the fan base, that doesn't make it a majority. I do believe there is wider backlash here that Trent's going to get compared to, say, a Darwin Núñez, but it'll just be interesting to see what that response is, and we'll see if he's in the matchday squad on Sunday, what happens there, and then we think of if he gets the honours at the end of the season, the Guard of Honour. But he's the only one really leaving, isn't it? Whereas before, Divock Origi maybe went on his own, but it was Thiago, Milner, Keita, Oxlade-Chamberlain, and Klopp and all his coaching staff with Joel Matip as well. It's not really something, though, that's traditional at most clubs. It's just Liverpool have had a run of this for the last few years. So if they want to break away from that tradition, because let's be honest, we don't want to see it next year with Konate. You'd rather he signs a new contract.
Yeah,
maybe this is the starter.
It's probably between now and the end of the month anyway. The anger may sort of simmer down, whereas if he announced it days before the final game of the season, it'd probably be a lot heightened. But done it after the Chelsea defeat, and probably got the worst out of the way now, because it sort of has felt inevitable for a few months now. And going back to one of Julian's questions about will he take the mic and say a few farewell words, I don't think so. He's probably said enough now, hasn't he? In his post-match, he just wants to, or his interview with the club on Monday, he just wants to say his goodbyes, enjoy the final hurrah of his teammates, and ride off into the sunset.
I can see it both ways, to be honest. Like if Liverpool hadn't won the Premier League, you could see why maybe he would want to address the fan base and give it that last declaration to them. But that last day of the season cannot be about Trent Alexander-Arnold. It is a celebration of what Liverpool have achieved throughout this Premier League season, where they're on course to finish with above 90 points. They've won the title for the second time in 5 years. In Arne Slot's first season, having only signed Federico Chiesa, who's played a bit part role, everything they've achieved in the top flight this year has been so impressive. So that needs to take priority. It needs to be that celebration of what they've all contributed. And Trent has played a role there, just not maybe as big as he has done in previous seasons. But like Salah getting the FWA award today, you see how much of an impact he's made. Virgil van Dijk came second. This has been a Liverpool-dominated season. Yeah. They're going to clean up in all these individual awards at the end of the campaign. That last day needs to be celebrating that. And then it's that moment that everyone's been waiting for 35 years, to see them lift that trophy and celebrate it with their own fan base. You denied it in 2020. You can't let a few boos or whatever the feeling is towards Trent take the shine off that on May the 25th.
And talking about contingency plans, obviously before we came on air, the big news was that Bayer Leverkusen are parting ways with Xabi Alonso at the end of the season. And as you mentioned, with Jeremy Frimpong, he's another one who Liverpool is said to be interested in. Probably been around the sphere for a long time, both of us, and sort of come to the feeling now when a new manager does leave, it's not so easy to just snap up a player, is it? There's a whole structure in place at football clubs that if it's just one small piece taken out, you just put another one back in. So can't see so much Liverpool having a clear run at Frimpong should the interest be genuine. But it's an interesting dynamic now going into next season, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Like, you can see the sense in Frimpong because 3 Dutch players there, Dutch manager, and he's another offensive fullback, gets a lot of goals, gets a lot of assists. We saw him go viral, didn't he, where he was mimicking the Scouse accent when he was catching up with Ryan Gravenberch. He's played in England before, came through the Man City Academy, and he said in an interview a couple of months back that he was actually agreed to join Liverpool, and it was only the distance that stopped him making that move there. Manchester was closer to his home. But then it's what sort of fullback do Liverpool need? Like, Trent Alexander-Arnold is so unique. You're not going to directly be able to replace him. You need a right back in the squad to fill his place, but you also need someone to replace that creativity in the squad, and that's probably going to come more in midfield or your front three because he is so unique there. And it's like, is Trent the traditional fullback? Like that's how Arne Slot wants his side to play, or is it just you've got a player of that quality? We'll do that for a year. If he stays, great. If not, you can go back to what he prefers more. It'll be interesting to see what his side, how that shapes up next season and in pre-season as well. With Frimpong, it's just I can't see Liverpool spending 40, 50 million on a fullback if they're not going to be first choice. And you've got to weigh up what else they need to do. We know they need a centre forward. We know they want a centre forward. And we know left back is a big priority as well. Potentially a centre back as well. We don't know necessarily what's happening with Konate with his contract being up. If someone came in with a bid for him and they got tempted to sell in the summer, that makes the need for the centre back even greater. If there's a right player out there who they can bring in at right back, great. But if you've got the faith in Conor Bradley, maybe it's a case of you'd rather have one who can play right back and centre back or can play both sides. So it's not necessarily the answer for Frimpong. If you didn't have Bradley there, then sure, I could imagine he'd be one of the leading players, one of the leading candidates. It's obviously someone they've been looking at, but there is more that's got to fall into place here. Like, do you spend 50 million on a player when you've got Conor Bradley who's doing that and cost you nothing?
And staying on transfers, there's obviously that report this week from DiMarzio on Kevin De Bruyne in Liverpool. That was somewhat of a surprise when you're watching Arsenal on Wednesday and you check your phone and see they've made contact in inverted commas with his intermediaries, but it's probably not allowed currently, is it, with overseas clubs technically?
I think it's technically June the 1st you can sign the pre-contract agreement. So they can do the initial would he be interested if they really wanted to, but they can't have formal agreements or anything. And
Ian's obviously wrote an article this week saying Liverpool have got their targets elsewhere and the recruitment team's focused on different targets, and the reports from Italy are wider than mark. It's probably unfeasible Liverpool paying over 400 or a report of £400,000 a week for a player when Manchester City are reluctant to give him a new contract, even though he does still feel he can perform at the level, at the top, the elite level of Premier League football.
Yes, when the reports first came out, you think, oh, that's one way to replace the creativity of Trent in the side if you want to. He's obviously a boyhood fan, Kevin De Bruyne, and he is a quality player. You've seen Liverpool make those smart moves in the past with, say, James Milner on a free transfer, Thiago costing 25 million, had his injury woes, but he was still that elite player. They can make an exception. But Kevin De Bruyne, it still didn't quite fit for me. So it was no surprise to see Doyley's piece saying Liverpool aren't going to look at it because, it demands such a big wage. We've got to get the average age of that squad down. We've got a couple of aging players there, two have signed just new contracts. And while you could, say, give him Trent's wage or the offer you were going to give Trent, it still doesn't quite work for me because, for starters, Dominic Szoboszlai is one of Slot's most trusted favourite players. We know that is what he wants inside. He wants that pressing style, and that's what he sees in his number 10. Granted, you could put Szoboszlai deeper and still have him doing that, but De Bruyne doesn't have the legs the same way. Yeah, he can unlock a side, but he's had his injury problems. He's been up and down this season. He was anonymous when Liverpool went to the Etihad and won 2-0 in February, was it? So he might still have another good season left in his legs because we've seen him have injuries before and then not be at his best in those campaigns, then be injury-free the next year and be absolutely brilliant. And I'm not disputing his quality, but Liverpool need to think more long-term here. You'd rather see them get a number 10 who's more like Szoboszlai pressing style, but has got the goals and got the assists, rather than that elite world-class Kevin De Bruyne playmaker who's on the way out. You're going to get a year, two out of him. There is a little bit of sense in bringing a player of that quality as a squad, and I'm sure there'll be so many top teams looking at him. Yeah. But Liverpool you look elsewhere, I think. They've got quite a bit they need to do. You don't want to blow the entire what's left in the wage bill on an aging Kevin De Bruyne.
It's interesting that notion comes up. Liverpool could go for a player like Kevin De Bruyne, and it makes you think about what calibre of player Arne Slot's looking for in the summer, when you know what Liverpool wants, but it's like you don't know what's behind the curtain, do we? And we don't know what calibre of player they're going to go for. And always seems like the consensus is now that Liverpool need more of an injection of pace. And you've seen PSG on Wednesday and how fast they were in those transition and counter attacks. Almost reminiscent of Liverpool from a few years ago, wasn't it? And just feels like De Bruyne doesn't quite fit that model, but also poses the question: what mould is this Liverpool team going to be shaped into over the next 12 months?
Well, I think pace is a big part of it because Conor Bradley brings you a lot more pace at right back. If they get Milos Kerkez at left back, that's obviously a quick option when Robertson's legs are starting to go a little bit. So that's more pace on both sides. And we know the pressing nature of a Szoboszlai. Striker-wise, we've seen a number of names linked there, so it'll be interesting to see who they actually go for, who's available. But they're all pretty much that all-rounder, aren't they? Someone who can get in behind, but it's a physical presence as well. And then it is maybe trying to get back to that front three that they had that was so devastating with Sadio Mane and Roberto Firmino, potentially, because Mane was electric. Salah was quicker then as well. I think he's a bit more controlled with what he can do in his movements and his runs now, but he's becoming more of this playmaker. So it is about getting more pace into the side, getting that younger feel in the squad. It's interesting just because so many clubs are going to be looking at the same sort of strikers, for example. Like, Arsenal will want one, United will probably want one. You wouldn't be surprised if Chelsea want one, if Newcastle lose Isak. They'll want one. These are big clubs who could all be in the Champions League. So that means there's a lot of money to spend there as well. And it's just going to be, we know the names that are out there. We'll see who wins who. But yeah, you need a bit more pace in that Liverpool team. Someone prolific as well. If they can get 25 goals a season, even if that's second, third behind Mohamed Salah, you're happy with that, aren't you? It's an improvement on what you've got from Jota this year and what you've got from Nunes this year. You need someone who can stay fit and who can take the chances. And Liverpool haven't had that for 2 years, 3 years.
Moving back on to Frimpong, Michael Lord asked the question, wouldn't Frimpong allow Slot to move to a double defensive centre midfield formation with flying wing backs out wide? Bradley could do it as well, but very energy sapping. You've been at most of the home games and not all of them, and you've probably seen with Slot's tinkering, or maybe not so much tinkering. Is he one a bit like Klopp and Pep Guardiola, who sort of like to have that fluidity in the formations, or is he more strict in terms of you stay in your position?
I think there's a fluidity to it, definitely. Like Ryan Gravenberch, for example, he's this number 6, but it's not a case of you stand in the centre circle and you're not allowed into their half or whatever. He can get forward, he can create things. You've got Alexis McAllister there offering support as well. I think it is more a case of you look at the opposition, you look at their strengths and weaknesses, and you do make those minor tweaks to suit your own style. Like there are some games this season where it has been Trent, stay out wide, bomb forward, get crosses in. Other games it's hold you back a little bit, get central, get on the ball. Liverpool have got that variety to their game now, and they do put the foot on the ball. They do slow it down a little bit and they try and pass it around, but they can turn it on with that high pressing or getting in behind as well, because they've still got like Diaz on the counter attack, Salah, Jota, etc., etc. So it will be interesting to see what he prefers next season, because we're still waiting to fully see what Arne Slot wants from his Liverpool side, because this season it has felt a little bit of, you've won the league, but 2-3 of these players are maybe square pegs and round holes.
And there's a Real Madrid fan in the comments, it looks like, saying, let Trent go, don't bench him. And feels like a good segue back into it, just to say, there was a report this week that Real Madrid are looking to pay him out of his contract early, isn't it? And to enable him to play in that Club World Cup, which starts 2 weeks before the end of his contract in June. Do you feel like that's feasible in terms of what Liverpool sort of want to do? Would they allow him to go?
I'd imagine so. There's nothing to lose from doing it because your season's up. It's just getting those agreements in place, because I would imagine Liverpool, for starters, go, right, we're not paying you wage for that last month if you want to go early. You've got to then agree the fee with Real Madrid, and then there's the knock-on of, well, technically he's going for a transfer fee. Does he still get the big, massive signing-on fee? Because is he a free agent? Isn't he a free agent? There are things to consider here. But if you're looking at it as they're going, this player is going to go at the end of his contract and we're not getting a transfer fee, but you can let him go for a month early, get a small transfer fee, and you save on that wage. Might only be $1 million or whatever, but you're still saving a little bit. It's not going to make a massive difference for Liverpool, but it just makes sense, doesn't it, for them to consider that? And you want the player to be happy at the end of the day as well. I know it's not the most savoury exit in terms of the supporters at the moment, but he's still a player who's been at the club for 20 years, has won everything there is to win. I don't think Liverpool are going to deny him that if they can reach an agreement with Real Madrid and get a little bit of money in exchange for him.
Another comment from Joe Riley this time. He's asked about, do you think it will be noticeable if Trent comes on that a number of the match-going fans are going to be unhappy? I think it could be split down the middle, personally, considering it's not going to be a small minority, is it? It could be very much split down the middle, and it could be certain. It'd be interesting when he warms up, won't it, to see what sort of reception he'll get.
Yeah, well, like we saw a bit of backlash for him against Manchester United in the 2-2 draw, because that was obviously just after the Real Madrid bid in January came in, and he wasn't playing well. There were fans getting frustrated with him, making it known. But he's not really had to deal with it much at Anfield. Like, there were a few boos when he came on at Leicester City, and he quickly silences them. He then gets the most emphatic reception you can get when they win the Premier League title from the fans back at Anfield. So this is that first real test now. I do think it will be more unified. It's not just going to be small pockets here and there. I do think there is more anger towards Trent than we've seen earlier in the campaign. But then at the same time, Liverpool supporters, they want their side to beat Arsenal. They want them to embarrass the Gunners even more, build a bigger lead in the Premier League title race and go, yeah, we are the absolute best here. So it's about that perspective. I think it would just be reserved for when he comes on, if he comes on. Maybe when his name's read out, if he's on the bench ahead of kickoff. I don't think it would be like every time he steps up in front of the fans, every time he touches the ball. But I think there'll be probably a bit of displeasure on there, yeah.
Moving into Sunday now, Arsenal, it was a game that everyone looked to in a few months ago going, this could be the title decider. And now it's almost like a few months ago when Liverpool had that week or so spell when you're out of the Carabao Cup and out of the Champions League pretty quickly. And with Arsenal, they've gone from being within contention to getting the Premier League and now being in the Champions League final, and now out the Champions League, and a few days later giving a guard of honour to Liverpool. Touch upon the guard of honour, because obviously that's been mainstream news now for some reason, even though when every other team wins the league early, everyone seems to sort of be unified in the sense that let's show them the mark of respect. But when it seems like with Liverpool doing it now, or Liverpool having the opportunity to receive it, it feels like it needs to be abolished and never to be seen again.
Well, I can't remember too many teams winning it that early in recent years. Like last year, it went to the last day, didn't it?
Yeah.
Arsenal wouldn't have been that far off the year before. 2022 went to the last day. 21, no fans there anyway. 2020, no fans. 2019 went to the last day.
There's still Guard of Honour in 2020.
I know there's still Guard of Honour, but if you're not there seeing it, there were bigger things to worry about, weren't there? So it's not since, 2018 when City were Centurions, really, where you've had a number of games where Guard of Honour, Guard of Honour, Guard of Honour, Guard of Honour, and it just shoves it down your throat how dominant one side has been in the Premier League this year, that a second place couldn't get near. It does rub the salt in the wounds for Arsenal, but it's deserved, isn't it? This is a tradition in English football, or in Premier League football at the very least, that if the champions do it, you show them that sign of respect. And I can remember Liverpool having to give Chelsea guards of honour and stuff in the past, so it's part of the game. I don't see why it should be such a big deal. If it was the other way around and Arsenal had won the Premier League and this was supposed to be a title decider but had gone the other way, Liverpool would give them the guard of honour.
Liverpool did give them a guard of honour in like the late 80s, early 90s, wasn't it?
Yeah, before our time, that one, mate.
Well, yeah.
I'm talking more recently.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I don't think it's going to be just thrown out because a few people have got a bit miffed about it. It's just because it has been so one-sided in this title race this season. It was a bit closer, because if Liverpool wins it 18-point gap, it's ridiculous, isn't it? I can remember thinking it's ridiculous at times when Liverpool are 20 points behind the champions in fourth or fifth. But when that's the gap between first and second, that's why people are annoyed. Next year it'll be fine, won't it? If Man City are breathing down the necks, Liverpool are breathing down their necks, Arsenal there as well. You just want to see a proper title race, and we've not got that. So you get your frustration out by going, why should we have to show the sign of respect? Just because it shows how good Liverpool have been this season.
And Slot alluded to it in his press conference where he mentioned that there possibly is an argument that Arsenal do have a little bit more at stake, with Man City 4 points behind them, or 3 points behind them, and Newcastle and Chelsea both 4 points. That they're teetering quite close to falling down the Champions League pecking order. I suppose they have that buffer where it's they've got the fifth place Champions League place now. Is there an element where it's a chance for Liverpool to sort of show why they are worthy champions after the event now, after obviously a slightly abject performance against Chelsea, understandably, but with Arsenal looking to very much salvage the season now after that Champions League exit on Wednesday?
Yeah, Liverpool want to stick the knife in, definitely. You can understand why they weren't at the best against Chelsea. You can imagine it'll probably be a changed team against Brighton as well. But the two games at home, when it's won, those are your priorities. You want to put on a show in front of your fans, especially when one of them is against the side that's going to potentially finish second, and then when you're getting your hands on the trophy. So it is a great attempt for them to show what they can do and just get back to the best. Show it wasn't just a case of not deserving champions or whatever. People can't use this as a stick against Liverpool. And yeah, Arsenal, they'll be a bit downbeat when they get that knocked out the Champions League. And it'll be interesting to see how they come to Anfield because they haven't got the best record there. Are we going back to 2011, 2012 or something since they won there? So if they could get a victory, imagine what a statement that can send for them, at least finishing this season, going into next year, that they're closer than this 18, 15-point deficit proves. But for Liverpool, you want that to be as great as possible. You do really want to stamp on them there, make them feel as low as possible to give yourself that little bit of an advantage going into next season. I'll be seeing interesting to see how it does shape up as an encounter because now Arsenal don't have a Champions League final to look forward to. They're not going to need to rotate, are they? Like these games, not necessarily dead rubbers if you've got the teams fighting with a league position with them, but they're going to get in the Champions League, aren't they? And they've had that embarrassment before of maybe not finishing second, dropping to third when it should be a two-horse title race. But it's about bragging rights maybe for them, getting a bit of respect back. But yeah, let Liverpool send out the statement.
How do you see the game going, given that pretty much is up in the air, isn't it? Arsenal haven't won in 4, lost the last 3, and obviously that comeback defeat, or they relinquished that lead against Bournemouth, didn't they, and lost 2-1. There's going to be a lot of pressure on them to perform, isn't there? And it's Liverpool's opportunity now.
Yeah, there's probably a bit of pressure on both sides to perform because not best results last weekend. But for Liverpool, it's you want to make the title not even rivals anymore, but you want to make your runners-up feel small. And Arsenal want to send out that statement that the deficit is a false one. So it's going to be interesting to see who starts the game the better. Because like Liverpool-Arsenal matches, they're usually exciting. They're usually goal fests, end-to-end action. So there's not really the pressure in terms of what's up for grabs. It'll be interesting to see how they go about it, if it is just a full frenzied goal fest or if it's a bit sluggish, end-of-season feel, not much riding on it. But surely pride comes into it. Like you'd expect Liverpool to be a bit stronger than they were against Chelsea. Expect Arsenal to use it to make their own point. Arteta's made some salty comments, hasn't he, in the press in the past week. Could motivate Liverpool a little bit, but yeah, we'll see.
You mentioned it there. What did you make of those Mikel Arteta comments? It's probably somewhat sour grapes, but Liverpool have been in that position plenty of times where they've absolutely outdone every of the teams below them, but just haven't been able to pip Man City at the top, and they've had 99 points or something silly like that. How would you reflect on those comments then from Arteta?
They were daft, weren't they? Like I get maybe the point he's trying to make that you do need a little bit of luck to win trophies. You need to be in the right place at the right time. But we can turn that on its head and say this Liverpool side under Jurgen Klopp would have dominated the Premier League earlier in the Premier League era. It's just because they were against Man City, this juggernaut, that they have only one Premier League title to show for it. And he just seemed to be missing the point completely because you can say, oh, we got more points than 82 points last year and the year before. Well, yes, you played 38 games. Liverpool won it with 82 points after 34 games. Liverpool can get over 90 points or whatever. That was more than Arsenal managed in the last 2 seasons. And then you have, Arsenal were on less than Liverpool's 82 at the same point in both of the last 2 seasons. So it is sour grapes. I'm sure there was a point he was trying to make, but he just came off horribly, didn't he? And it made it even worse by the fact that they then got knocked out of the Champions League. It's another year where they're not going to win a trophy, and they'll be even more embarrassed if Tottenham Hotspur go and win the Europa League. It's not been the best year for Arsenal in terms of the silverware. But we've said it on this podcast before, they need that first big trophy to get over the line. And what happens if Liverpool don't win a Champions League in 2019? Does all the success come, or do they then have that seed of doubt in their heads still, like having lost the Champions League final, then having lost the Premier League title by a point, having given it absolutely everything? And we'll see what happens with Arsenal. Like Arteta, he's going to be under pressure next year. He's going to need to deliver. He's going to need to last the distance in a title race. But he's talking about what they could have won with those points. They've not had the points that Liverpool have had, as you said, when Liverpool came second, missing out by a solitary point, which brings me back to my point. You take that Man City side under Guardiola out of the equation, how many more titles Liverpool have won? Every single side can say this. You can look back at Leicester's title winning year, and every single top club, elite club should be looking at that going, if we pulled ourselves together that year, that could have been us. But you use that as motivation for the next year. Like Liverpool, if Arsenal had won the title last season when Liverpool dropped off, Liverpool would have been looking at it going, that should have been us. Arsenal will be looking at it this year going, that should have been us, because Man City aren't in the picture. That's just how all these sides think. And when you know the title race is going to be up for grabs next year, because they're all going to have to revamp, they're all going to have to sign new forwards or whatever, there's going to be a big transfer window for a number of sides. And then you throw in the Club World Cup, which could make Man City more fatigued, make Chelsea more fatigued, or it could make them start sharper because they've had the more recent football. It is going to be interesting to see who starts quickly and who really sends out the statement and makes themselves early title favourites, because at the moment it's up for grabs, isn't it?
And just on those Arteta comments, in case you haven't heard or read them, he said that it was before the PSG game that Liverpool have won the title with less points than we have in the last 2 seasons. So far, the past 2 seasons, we have 2 Premier League titles. You have to be in the right moment, in the right place. It sort of brings me on to this whole thing about like what phase is X, Y, Z, and when you look on social media, that's what everyone sort of refers to with Mikel Arteta, like what phase is he in, and then you see Arne Slot come in, first season, win the Premier League, run close in the Champions League, dominate the league phase, and get beat in the Carabao Cup somewhat deservedly anyway. But it sort of begs the question, doesn't it, of where the 2 teams sort of are and where the 2 managers sort of lie in terms of stature, doesn't it?
Well, Liverpool have got 6, 7, maybe even 8 players who have won the Premier League before at Liverpool, who have been in Champions League finals. That number is greater. Who have competed for the honours right until the end. They know what it feels like. They know what it tastes like. And they've been big players in the squad, not necessarily fringe ones, whereas Arsenal, they don't have that. They've got Gabriel Jesus, Zinchenko, Kai Havertz, he scored a winner of Champions League, but they're not the leaders that you can look to, an Andy Robertson, a Virgil van Dijk, a Mohamed Salah, and Alisson Becker. There is something missing in that Arsenal squad there, and it's why they need that first trophy. Liverpool, they got it early on under Jurgen Klopp, and they made themselves this bastion of like they could beat anyone, couldn't they? And they were so good between 2018 and 2020, and it just didn't quite fall them for a prolonged period because they're up against Man City, because the pandemic happens, because of injuries, whatever. But for those 2 years, they were superb, and it's just what do Arsenal want to do, because they haven't got there yet. They've just been on the cusp of it. And you look at their squad, there are holes in that squad. Like anyone could have told you last summer, year before even, they need a 20, 30 goal striker. Ever since Aubameyang left, they have needed that striker, and they've not got it. And it's fair enough. You can say Liverpool never had it when Roberto Firmino was up front, but they had Salah who did it. They had Mane who did it. Arsenal have got Saka, who missed a chunk of the season, but he'll get you that maybe if he's fit for the whole thing. But you're not looking at the other flank and going Trossard, Martinelli. There is something lacking there in that front 3. And Odegaard, he's had injuries this year, not been at his best. And this will bring you on to, you can blame injuries. That's why Arsenal haven't been in there. Well, look how many injuries Liverpool seem to have year after year after year with Jurgen Klopp, reaching as many as 13 senior stars last year, and they could still be in a title race. Liverpool have had these setbacks, and they don't necessarily use it as an excuse. They don't whinge to the world. They get on with it because they've got that mentality to get over the line. It's why Jurgen Klopp called them the mentality monsters. Yeah, they weren't at their best at times. They conceded sloppy early goals, or they wouldn't get it over the line late on. But at their best, you couldn't beat them. And Arsenal still waiting to take that final step. If they'd got through to the Champions League final, they won the Champions League final, they would be such a different animal next season, because they then know what it tastes like. They know what it feels like. But they haven't. So it's how does Mikel Arteta pick them up and take them there, where he's done it as an assistant manager under Pep Guardiola. He's not there as well. He's not quite got that step in him. We'll see if he can take that step, because people would have said the same about Jurgen Klopp for years, wouldn't he? When you see him lose Champions League final to Bayern Munich with Dortmund, when you see him lose it to Real Madrid, Liverpool, miss out on like League Cup, Europa League, he's losing league titles and finals when he had his best players taken away with Dortmund as well. But sometimes when it clicks, you then do it. And Liverpool have got enough in their camp for it to have been that handover period from Jurgen Klopp that they could do it. Arsenal just fell short, and embarrassingly so, let's be honest. When it could be a 20-point gap at the end of the season, they should hang their heads.
It could be interesting to see how Liverpool sort of grasp this now, isn't it? And you see what Man City's dominance has looked like, and as you've referred to a bit earlier about both Chelsea and City have got the Club World Cup, and they could easily go into next season like blowing and struggling. And with Arsenal, we don't know if they've got the calibre to take it over and take it to that next step. Liverpool have got the perfect opportunity to sort of cement themselves as these global powerhouses and Premier League favourites every season, which they have been at times, but haven't quite lived up to it. And probably some making up to do for lost time now, isn't there?
Potentially, but I do think it'll be a lot more open next season. I'm not sure it's necessarily going to be a case of one side can go and stroll away with it and do it 4 years in a row like City had done previously, because they're on their first step if they revamp. Liverpool are still early in their journey, and you expect they have to take a step back with some of the changes Arne Slot's going to make to this squad. And then it's how much of it was this is Jurgen Klopp's squad, that's the success there, or how much of it is Arne Slot taking it to the next level. That's something they're going to have to learn next season, replacing some big players in that camp. And it's so hard to say who is going to be title candidates or who is going to go the distance, because you can say 5-6 teams, they're going to be going for those Champions League places, but then it's who is in a title race until May, who is going to be going for it the last day of the season. And we'd say Liverpool, Arsenal, Man City, but when have we ever had 3 teams going for it right until the very end? It's like, well, Newcastle have had the experience of going in the Champions League, that affected their form, but now they've had that, can they push on again if they keep some key players? United, Spurs, you're going to assume they're not going to be as bad as they have been this year, but then where do they go? Are they fighting for 7th, 6th, or can they be in Champions League contention? Can they take another step? And then you've got the likes of Aston Villa there. There are so many quality teams here who are going to be in the Champions League again. Now we've got 6 teams in it next year. It is going to be really fascinating to see how that title race shapes up. And the transfer window is going to be huge there. It's going to be how quickly your new signings settle, how quickly you get them embedded in your team, and who starts well, who can really set up that statement and go, we are title favourites.
And before we go into the lineups for Saturday, now, when you mentioned that they're probably going to be a slightly stronger team from what played against Chelsea, probably some opportunities missed, wasn't there, from the players against Chelsea where they didn't quite live up to their expectations, and some players, like you say, with square pegs and round holes, they are running out of time now, aren't they?
It's debatable, because there's so many players you can go through that Liverpool squad and you'll say there's a question mark against them, but they can't sell them all. Like we can say Diaz, Jota, Nunes, Chiesa, all 4 of them being linked with moves away. But it's surely unfeasible Liverpool sell 4 forwards. So does that mean Diaz stays, or Jota gets another chance, or Chiesa even gets another chance? And then you can say, well, defensively, you'd maybe get rid of Joe Gomez. Quanta's been linked with moves away, but you're already losing Trent, and then Tsimikas, Robertson. It's a balancing act. You can't sell absolutely everybody. Somebody is going to need to stay and be a backup. Maybe someone's just going to surprise someone in pre-season and force their way back to the starting 11. Maybe we'll see a reprieve for Andy Robertson. He takes it up a level again after staying free from injury. Few of those players, yeah, they'll be a bit disappointed with how they played last weekend, but it maybe wasn't as bad as some people suggested, because I thought Endo played quite well. Elliott was decent enough in the second half. Quansah, yeah, he concedes the penalty and he scores an own goal, but the own goal wasn't his fault, and he wasn't the worst performance, let's be honest. And that's always going to happen in your first game after you've won a title when you're making 6 changes. If Slot had approached it going, right, we'll make these 3 changes this week, these 3 changes next week, and spread it out, you'd feel it would be a bit more of a real feel for them. It would be easier for them to make their impact. But you can't just judge them on 45, 50 minutes of whatever in a poor performance against Chelsea. I do think they'll go stronger against Arsenal, because you want to send out that statement, and then maybe we'll see another chance for Elliott against Brighton, but it's still managing the squad there. Slot hasn't rotated as much as he should have this season. Whether that's he doesn't trust these players, or he just had so much trust in who he did start. But then that's something he's got to look at next year, because if they want to go all the way in the Premier League, go far in the Champions League, he needs to use more than 14, 15 players. It's English football. It's more intense. You've got 2 domestic cups. You've got no winter break. You need to make better use of the squad. And that's what we've been saying for a number of months now. Hopefully it's lessons learned. And
going into the lineups now, just the 2 of us, so it'll be pretty easy and pretty quickly to go through it, won't it? So obviously Alisson in goal, isn't
it? Yeah, Alisson in goal. Bradley right back. I'd imagine Konate comes back in. Van Dijk alongside him. It could be either of the left backs. I'll go Robertson, just because he's been first choice throughout the season. I think maybe it's a case of reward your back 4 that's pretty much won it. The only change there is Bradley's in for Trent, because you're looking to the future.
And in midfield, it's probably been a good few weeks for the likes of McAllister and Gravenberch where they have been afforded that rest period.
Yeah, McAllister's been superb, hasn't he, for a number of weeks now, and he's just got Premier League Player of the Month. Gravenberch was obviously rested altogether last week. No injury there that we're aware of. So you'd imagine they come back in. And it's good that you can give them that little bit of a rest. Same for Szoboszlai as well, because there have been times in the season where Gravenberch and Szoboszlai in particular have looked leggy, but you revert to this first choice midfield three, I think, against Arsenal.
And the attack, obviously, we had Gakpo, Jota and Salah front against Chelsea. Salah obviously the mainstay, unless you feel like Chiesa can get that start under his belt. He's exceeded 4 performances now, hasn't he? So he's
got his medal. He's got his medal.
Yeah.
Salah's still on the right because he's going for his records, isn't he? He's got 2, goal contributions and assists overall. So he starts. Gakpo keeps his place, and it's probably Luis Diaz down the middle. Like, maybe I'm just being a little bit, I don't know, getting carried away here, thinking you want to send out that statement against Arsenal. You want to win your home games here, so you revert to your strongest side. But it just does feel like your away game against Brighton, that's the one where you turn to some of the fringe players again, like in front of your home fans against those title rivals all season. It might not have been a small gap, but you still want your strong 11 to really set out a statement.
And that brings a close to our Blood Red podcast this week ahead of Liverpool.
We're not doing predictions.
Predictions, sorry, yeah. Jumped the gun, it's been a while. Go on, Theo, I'll let you start then. What do you think?
Goals. Let's say 3-2 Liverpool.
3-2 Liverpool. I think it's going to be 2-1. I don't feel like Liverpool have got...
You really don't like that book.
No, I'm having an absolute mare this afternoon. I don't think Liverpool have got a clean sheet of them at the minute, and Arsenal just seem to nick a goal here and there, don't they? So I think 2-1 Liverpool, and I think that could be that. A statement sent out.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah. And thanks, Theo, for joining us on this week's Blood Red podcast ahead of Arsenal on Sunday. Before we go, we do have a lot of offers on for you, and with Liverpool being Premier League champions for the second time in 5 years, it's a perfect opportunity to pick up your newspaper for any mementos and standalone pieces which Theo, Paul Gorst and Ian Doyle have contributed to. Those can be found on Reach's newspaper shop, and on Sunday there is the first programme since Liverpool won the Premier League. Maybe slightly turning the twisting the screw in to Arsenal a little bit, showing off the champions maybe. So that's available on the Reach Sports shop, and obviously thanks as ever to our sponsors, NordVPN, and you can get an extra 4 months off your 2-year plan if you go to nordvpn.com/bloodred. And
2 shout-outs.
Yeah, got to.
You'll be their favourite, won't you?
Got to make up for it. And thanks for all the comments and likes and shares on the live stream. Be sure to tune in next week where you can throw in your comments and ask the lads questions. And if you're not going to be in time or be on the live stream next week, make sure you send your emails to joe.rimmer@reachplc.com. And finally, make sure you like, subscribe, thumbs up, ding dong, that notification bell, and we'll catch you next week. Thank you very much.